Okay, and welcome back, folks. Professor Almeida here with a how-to guide on creating a Windows virtual machine in VirtualBox. Now, keep in mind that this is just one option if you don't readily have access to a Windows system at home, especially if you're using a Mac or if you're using a Linux-based computer. So I'm going to take you through the process of installing Windows 10. Now, you're going to need a couple of things. Number one, you need to make sure that your system has enough storage and memory. On my particular laptop here, I have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is just enough to be able to run the things that I want on my Kubuntu Linux system, and then in Windows 10 to be able to run Office 365 and maybe a tab or two of Google Chrome. So you want to make sure that you have enough resources, you have the storage space, and you have the RAM to be able to pull this off. What you're essentially doing is fooling Windows 10 into thinking that it's being installed on a computer. Okay, that's the whole idea of virtualization. It's software based, but it's sharing resources with your existing hardware. That's basically the idea here. So again, this is just one option if you don't have access to a Windows based system at home. Okay, so you're going to need to make sure that your system is ready for it. I'm going to show you where you can go to download the ISO or a disk image, because really what you're just going to need is the disk image, nothing too fancy here. And you're also going to need a license key. Now, if you're a student, you can go to collegebuys.org and you can get a Windows 10 for Education license key for free. Okay, so you're going to need that license key to validate your copy of Windows 10. Okay, so you want to make sure you have all of that ready to go. And let me go ahead and show you how to get started here. By the way, if you need to hit that pause button, please do so. Okay, so the very first thing I want to show you is the download page for Windows 10. So if you Google Windows 10 download, it will take you to this page here. Make sure first and foremost that you are connected directly to Microsoft and not some shady site here. Okay, so this is the download Windows 10 disk image page. Before you begin, just like what we've talked about, you want to make sure that your system is ready to go. You have enough resources. You can safely ignore the rest of this because we are installing into a virtual machine. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you have a fast internet connection. And the reason for this is because, and I'll show you here, here's my Windows 10 ISO, and it registers at 5 gigabytes in size. Okay, so you want to make sure that your connection is fast enough that you can be able to download the entire ISO. So once you have the ISO downloaded, go ahead and install VirtualBox onto your system. And I choose VirtualBox because it's free and open source. It's cross-platform. It doesn't really give me that much trouble. And as a matter of fact, you can see here that I have 4 different machines in VirtualBox. I have a Windows XP virtual machine all set up. And if you really want to see it, I'll go ahead and launch it for you. So this is basically how a virtual machine works, right? So you can see here's Windows XP in all of its magic glory here, starting up. There it is, and that's really what it is. It's basically a computer in software, if you want to put it that way. So there's Windows XP running in the background. You can see that I have a Windows 8.1 image here that I used to use for cybersecurity competitions. There's Ubuntu Linux, and then finally I have my Windows 10 machine. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a machine just like this. Okay, so I'm just going to let that run in the background there. Okay, and there it is, right? There's Windows XP. Let me go ahead and shut it down. And just like that, boom, that's your virtual machine right there. Okay, so how do we create a new machine? Whoops, there we go. How do we create a new machine? We just go ahead and click on new. So again, this is assuming that you've installed VirtualBox. Okay, we're going to click on new. And what do you want to call your machine? Well, in this case, I'm going to call mine my test machine. You can name it whatever you want. What kind of machine is it? It's Windows, and it's Windows 10 64-bit. Now, you could see that you could choose 32-bit, but pretty much everything nowadays is 64-bit, so we're just going to go with that, and we're going to click on Next. All right, how much memory do you want to give this virtual machine? Again, it really depends on what kind of system you have. My laptop here has 8 gigabytes of RAM. Personally, I think that should be the minimum if you're going to do this. Okay, if your system has only 4 gigabytes of RAM, it's really pushing it. I would say 8 is the minimum. And if you've seen my past videos with Windows 10 in a VM, you'll see that struggle sometimes, even with my system here. The more RAM you have, the better. Okay, but personally, I would say 8 is the minimum. So what am I going to do? I'm going to split that 8 in half. So my Linux side gets 4 gigs and Windows 10 gets 4 gigs. So I'm just going to move this slider to 4 gigs or 4096 megabytes here. All right, we'll go ahead and click Next. Create a virtual hard disk now, sure. And here, me personally, I like to go with VMDK. You can leave it as VDI by default. Now, the reason why I do VMDK is because I work with VMware, and with VMDKs, those files will split if your image gets big enough. It's a lot easier for transporting. That's just my personal preference, but again, you can leave it at VDI. I prefer VMDK, but that's just me. Okay, so I'm going to go with VMDK here. I'll click Next. It's going to be dynamically allocated. That's perfectly fine. We could just leave that alone. And now, how much disk space do you want to give Windows 10? And again, it depends on how much storage you have on your machine. Okay, me personally, I have a terabyte of storage, so 50 gigabytes is not a big deal for me. Okay, but if you are short on space, you really have to think about this, because it's not just Windows 10, it's also Office 365. Maybe you want to install Chrome into your Windows 10 VM, maybe a couple of other tools that you can't get in Mac or Linux. So you really have to think about this, okay? Me personally, again, I'm just going to leave it at 50. I'll go ahead and hit Create. And then there we are. There's our virtual machine. It's all ready to go, but we still need to install an operating system onto it, okay? So let's get to that part where we actually get Windows 10 up and running. By the way, if you need to hit that pause button, please do so. Okay. So first things first, we're going to go into settings here. Okay, and again, this is very important. We're going to go down to storage, and you can see here's our SATA controller. There's the VMDK that we just created. This is essentially our quote-unquote hard drive. Here's our quote-unquote disk drive, and over here you see this menu. I'm going to go ahead and choose my ISO. Okay, so this is the ISO that I downloaded here. Okay, so again, if you go back to this page, you download your ISO. Okay, make sure you go find it. Again, me personally, I'm pretty OCD with my file management, so I like to keep it in certain places. So there's my Win10 ISO, and I'm gonna go ahead and check this box for live CD or DVD. Okay, the reason for this is because once Windows 10 installs to the hard drive, it shouldn't boot to the CD drive again. Okay, so that's the reason for it. A live CD essentially lets you try out the operating system without installing it to your computer. This is more commonly found in Linux, but in the case with Windows 10, the live CD or ISO allows you to install or repair a Windows 10 installation. That's pretty much what it is. Okay, so once we've done that, we're ready to rock and roll here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and power this on. All right. And here we are. We're ready to go. We are in Windows 10, folks. There we go. There's the Windows logo, and we should see the spinning dots of death real soon, as I like to call it. Okay, and again, it might take a moment. There it is. And Windows 10 is getting started. All right. So this is how you install Windows 10. You just basically follow through the prompts here. Go ahead and click Next, and then Install Now. By the way, you want to make sure that you do have that Windows 10 for Education license key ready to go so that you can plug it in and validate your copy of Windows 10. Anyway, I hope this video helps you out. If it did, smash that like button. Good luck with your installation, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.